I still remember the moment he stepped into my life in a way nobody could have predicted. Cheeseburger. Yep, that's what I call him, and I have zero regrets about it. Sounds ridiculous, I know, but it all started with a double cheeseburger he brought me. He looked at me with this half-shy, half-proud smile, and I couldn't stop laughing. "Are you seriously going to save my name as Cheeseburger?" he asked. I just shrugged and smiled, and from that moment, the name stuck like it was meant to. He gave me that mock-stern look, half annoyed, half amused, but he didn't object. He even turned it into a joke. "All right, if you like it, from now on I'll be double cheese." Sounds good, right? Eventually, we shortened it to DC, but in my phone, he's still Cheeseburger. I like that. It's funny, yes, but it's also true to our relationship. Natural light, and not overcomplicated. He's not someone you can predict. From the very first meeting, I noticed it. He was wearing a t-shirt with a dancing cat on it, and mismatched socks. I had no idea if it was fashion or just morning laziness, but I chuckled inwardly and thought, this is definitely a man I'll never get tired of watching. We went for coffee that first day, sitting across from each other, talking about everything from movie soundtracks, comics, to grocery shopping. There was something about the way he talked that made everything feel both serious and hilarious. I had never met anyone like that, and it made me curious and want to get closer. But the fun didn't stop there. Cheeseburger or DC had a little secret. He was a secret Swiftie. I found out in the most surprising way. He used his little sister and niece as a cover for his obsession. During one of our chats, I casually mentioned a new Taylor Swift song, and I caught this flicker of embarrassment in his eyes. "You listen to Taylor Swift too?" I asked. He laughed awkwardly and quickly changed the subject, and I thought to myself, so he doesn't fully admit his fandom. I wasn't annoyed or judgmental. Instead, I found it kind of charming. I liked being let in on that tiny secret, a side of him very few people knew. The first few weeks together were a series of small, unforgettable moments. One day, I texted, "I'm hungry, want a cheeseburger?" He replied immediately, "Absolutely, but this time you're paying." I laughed out loud. He always knows how to make me feel safe and entertained at the same time. We could burst out laughing over the smallest things, an emoji, a ridiculous joke, or even his attempt at singing a Taylor Swift line he'd never admit he knew. Those little moments made me realize this relationship didn't need grand, romantic gestures. It was about acceptance and joy in each other's company. Of course, there were moments when I wondered, am I getting too carried away by jokes? Am I falling for all these tiny quirks and forgetting the bigger things? Honestly, there's no definite answer. I just knew that love, the way I was experiencing it with Cheeseburger DC, was about everyday moments, about feeling safe, and about humor in the smallest gestures. I loved how he made ordinary things feel specialer. Morning coffee, a quick sandwich, a silly joke. All of it became pieces of a relationship I cherished and felt lucky to have. Gradually, I realized I was falling for him. Not the kind of fairy tale romance you read about, but real, close, and full of laughter. He wasn't perfect, and neither was I, but there was something special between us, a connection I had never felt before. Cheeseburger DC was the person who made me happy even when there wasn't a big reason. Just because he existed in my life. Afternoons spent walking and talking about everything from trivial things to deep thoughts made me understand one thing. I had never felt this close to anyone. He listened, but without being serious all the time. He cared, but without controlling. And most importantly, he made me feel safe and allowed me to be myself. Love doesn't always have to be serious or elaborate. It needs sincerity, playful moments, and even little secrets to share. One afternoon, we were sitting in a quiet coffee shop, and he handed me a sandwich. "You know, this cheeseburger is just for you." I smiled, said nothing, and savored every bite, thinking, yeah, he's mine, in the quirkiest, most wonderful way. That moment brought a quiet joy, warm and comforting. I knew I would retell this story 100 times, to friends, to myself, as a reminder that happiness can start from the silliest things. And so, our story began with a ridiculous name, tiny jokes, little secrets, and moments that made my heart skip a beat. Cheeseburger DC isn't a hero from a romance novel, but he's real, with trivial quirks that carry the power to make me laugh, love, and feel lucky. This relationship proves that love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real, joyful, and make you happy. I wonder sometimes if life will keep delivering surprises like this. And the answer is always yes. Because if you pay attention to the small stuff, the ordinary moments, you'll realize love, laughter, and happiness can bloom even from a cheeseburger. After the first few weeks together, filled with laughter, silly jokes, and the ridiculous nickname Cheeseburger DC, I started realizing this relationship was more than just fun. There was a layer of secrets I hadn't seen. At first, I thought I knew everything about him, how he frowned when annoyed, how he stuttered when embarrassed, even the way he ate a cheeseburger without ever answering, "Do you want extra sauce?" But apparently, I only knew the surface. Then, one day, I discovered he was a secret Swiftie, not just casually into Taylor Swift. He was the kind of fan who needed to use his little sister and niece as a cover for his obsession. I found out on a rainy afternoon. We were sitting in a little coffee shop near my place, where the smell of roasted coffee beans mixed with pastries made the air cozy. I casually mentioned a new Taylor Swift song, the kind of small talk that doesn't seem like much. "Have you heard this one yet? It's really good." He flinched slightly, blinked fast, and quickly tried to change the subject. I laughed quietly to myself and thought, so he doesn't fully admit his music fandom. But instead of feeling annoyed, I was intrigued. It felt like I'd just stepped into a secret room of his life, a part of him few people ever saw. When I finally asked outright, "Wait, you actually listen to Taylor Swift?" He scratched the back of his neck, laughed nervously, and said, "Sometimes." The way he said sometimes didn't hide the excitement in his eyes. That moment made me realize this relationship was far more interesting than I'd expected. I started noticing other little signs. A locked Taylor Swift playlist on his phone, him singing quietly in the kitchen, and sometimes sending me lyrics to his favorite songs, like little secret messages. All of it made me chuckle and feel closer to him in a way I hadn't before. One memory I'll never forget is when he invited me over to his place. I saw a partially open Taylor Swift album on the table. He tried to cover it up, but I saw it anyway. Instead of demanding an explanation, I just smiled and said, "I know, it's fine." He visibly relaxed. I realized that love isn't always about control or changing each other. Sometimes, love is about accepting each other's little secrets and quirks. Of course, having a secret like this came with its own tiny tension. I'd sometimes wonder, am I just a part of his cover plan? Does he really value this relationship? Or am I just a prop? But I quickly realized that if love was only about seriousness and measuring things out, it wouldn't be fun at all. I chose to focus on the playful details, the joyful moments, and felt happy to be the person he shared that little secret with. One evening, we cooked dinner together. He picked a dish I'd never tried, and while adding spices, he put on a Taylor Swift playlist. I started singing along, and he looked at me, surprised and delighted at the same time. That feeling was special, not some fairy tale romance happiness, but the kind of security and acceptance that lets you be yourself without fear of judgment. We laughed, sang, and tasted our cooking together. It was simple, light, yet strangely profound. Through these experiences, I realized Cheeseburger DC was incredibly thoughtful, balancing personal secrets with sharing just enough to include me. He didn't need to publicly declare his love for Taylor Swift, but he found ways to let me into a private corner of his world. That made me feel special, important, and not constrained. I started seeing our relationship as a sort of improvised comedy show, funny, playful, sometimes surprising, but always making both of us happy. Yet, there were quiet moments, too. I wondered about the future. Would these little secrets make us understand each other more, or cause conflict? Would the private interests and playful quirks push us apart? The answer only comes with real experience. And my experience with Cheeseburger DC showed me that little secrets, playful mischief, and ordinary moments are exactly what make love interesting. Another memory I cherish is our walk in the park on a chilly day. He grabbed my hand and winked. "I bet you'll laugh when I sing this Taylor Swift line wrong." I laughed, tried to sing along anyway, and he pretended to be annoyed. We giggled, wandering among the autumn leaves, and I thought, I'll never get tired of him, even if these things repeat forever. In that moment, I understood love doesn't need to be complicated or serious. It can be the tiny, silly moments that make your heart race. I also realized I was learning a lot from him. I learned to appreciate little secrets, to find joy in small quirks, to laugh and care without judgment. He made me see that love isn't always about grand gestures. It's about experiencing the little, sometimes ridiculous things together that make life meaningful. And so, I accepted it all. The ridiculous nickname, the Taylor Swift secrets, the little playful jokes. This relationship didn't need to be perfect or glamorous, it just needed to be real, fun, and capable of making each other happy in the ordinary moments. Those little secrets didn't divide us. They created connection, joy, and trust. Cheeseburger DC wasn't just a funny boyfriend. He was a thoughtful companion who could hold his private world while coloring our love with vibrancy. I knew that with each small secret, each ordinary moment, our love would grow, with plenty of surprises ahead. True happiness often starts with the tiniest things, the small details that outsiders may never notice, but they make your heart skip a beat, and make you feel lucky to share every little secret, every joke, and every ordinary yet wonderful moment together. By the third week of our relationship, I started realizing that Cheeseburger DC wasn't just a funny boyfriend. He had this knack for turning the simplest moments into something unexpectedly entertaining. Things that most people would overlook, he could turn into reasons to laugh, making every day feel special just because we were together. One weekend morning, I woke up to find him in the kitchen wearing a t-shirt with a dancing cat on it and mismatched socks, holding the coffee machine like it was a magic wand. He turned to me with a half-serious, half-mischievous look. "Do you want the best coffee of your life?" I blinked at him and muttered, "Are you trying to turn the kitchen into a stage?" He laughed, shrugging, like he was putting on a one-man comedy show. I realized that just by making coffee, he could brighten my entire day. Other days, we went grocery shopping. Normal, boring errands. Not with him. He insisted on testing every single sauce, then looking at me like, honestly, which one would you pick? I laughed so hard, I almost dropped the shopping basket. In the pastry aisle, he held a muffin the size of my hand and pretended it was a priceless treasure. We giggled right there between the shelves, completely ignoring the curious looks from other shoppers. I realized that, for him, joy wasn't about big gestures. It was about how you choose to see the ordinary moments in life. One unforgettable memory was at the park. He brought a tiny speaker, blasted a Taylor Swift song, and started dancing like nobody was watching, then dragged me in too. I pretended to be annoyed, but ended up dancing along. Passersby gave us strange looks, but we didn't care. We laughed, breathed in the crisp air, and I felt this strange, quiet peace. Ordinary moments, done with someone you love, suddenly became extraordinary. Of course, not everything was perfect. There were tiny arguments over silly things, like the time he sang a Taylor Swift line completely wrong and I laughed too hard. Or when I forgot an item at the grocery store and he teased me endlessly. But those little conflicts never lasted long and always ended with a hug, a knowing glance, or a playful joke that made us both laugh. I realized that part of happiness in a relationship is knowing how to navigate these small moments without letting them define your connection. One evening, we cooked together. He decided to try a new pizza recipe while I made the salad. While kneading the dough, he slipped a bit, sending flour flying everywhere. I burst out laughing, but he didn't even care. He danced around the kitchen like it was a stage, and I danced too. By the end, the kitchen was a mess of flour, sauce, and chaos, but we didn't mind. We cleaned up together, laughing, chatting, and I realized that happiness isn't in perfect results, but in how you experience the moments together. These everyday moments also taught me a lot about him. Cheeseburger DC wasn't just funny, he was observant, knowing when I was tired, when I was sad, and always finding ways to make me laugh. One day, when I was stressed about work, he appeared wearing a silly cat hat, singing a ridiculous song, and holding a cup of hot coffee. I couldn't help but laugh. Within minutes, my mood had lifted. I realized he had this amazing ability to turn gloomy days into bright ones with just a few small gestures. Still, I sometimes wondered about the future. Could these jokes and playful moments sustain a long-term relationship? Would we be able to rely on humor when facing bigger challenges? I knew the answers wouldn't come from theory, they would come from experience. And every day, through these ordinary moments of fun, I became more convinced that laughter and playfulness are essential for lasting love. We also had little battles that were actually fun. Who ate the last scoop of ice cream? Who forgot to do the dishes? Or who sang Taylor Swift wrong the most? These tiny contests always ended in laughter, teaching me that love isn't just about seriousness, it's about sharing silly, memorable moments. I learned to cherish every second, every joke, every little heartbeat of joy, even in the most ordinary situations. And so, these everyday fun moments became the glue that held us together. They weren't just laughter, they were proof of genuine love. A way to share life, and evidence that love doesn't need to be serious or glamorous to matter. Cheeseburger DC had this magical ability to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. And through him, I learned that true happiness often starts with the silliest, most mundane moments. After a few weeks of everyday fun and laughter, I started realizing that my relationship with Cheeseburger DC was about much more than just jokes and playful moments. Sometimes the most ordinary moments revealed emotions I had never felt with anyone before. He began showing me a different side of himself, thoughtful, warm, and full of little secrets that he reserved just for me. One rainy Saturday afternoon, we decided to take a walk in the nearby park. He brought a small umbrella, and I struggled with my soaked shoes. Along the path, he suddenly grabbed my hand and started telling a small, funny story about his work. I laughed along, but deep inside, I felt a unique sense of security, not theoretical, but real. A feeling of being protected, trusted, and free to be myself without hiding anything. What surprised me was how Cheeseburger DC balanced humor and sincerity. He never forced me to join in on his antics, but when I laughed with him, I realized we were creating a little world of our own where every tiny, seemingly meaningless detail became a cherished memory. Once, when I was venting about a minor annoyance at work, he appeared with a steaming cup of coffee, eyes twinkling, and told a ridiculous story about one of his co-workers. I couldn't stop laughing, and in that moment, all my stress and worries melted away, alongside the playful moments. I also noticed that this relationship had deeper layers, secrets Cheeseburger DC hadn't shared with anyone else. He started letting me see the subtle parts of his personality, the way he cared about small details in life, how he showed concern without ever making a show of it, and how he hid his private hobbies but still found ways to include me. I realized that love isn't always about laughter. It's also about quiet moments, when you sit together in silence and feel perfectly connected. One evening, we sat on the balcony, sipping tea and watching the warm glow of city lights. He suddenly began talking about his family, childhood memories, his fears, and his dreams. I listened without interrupting, feeling an unusual warmth in my chest. I understood that he was choosing to trust me, to share his deepest thoughts, and I realized that love doesn't always require grand gestures. Sometimes, ordinary conversations and quiet moments are enough to make your heart flutter. The small secrets I knew about him to last Swift. His music playlists, quirky habits suddenly felt more meaningful. They weren't just playful quirks anymore. They were pieces of who he was, and I felt lucky to be the one who knew them. One time, when he missang a Taylor Swift lyric, I didn't laugh. I just looked at him. I saw the little spark of trust in his eyes that I wouldn't judge him or mock him. That moment made me realize that true love is about acceptance, respect for little secrets, quirks, and the sides of someone that only their closest person ever sees. It wasn't just about feelings. We also created ordinary yet meaningful experiences together. One afternoon, we decided to try making pizza at home. While he kneaded the dough, I prepared the sauce. Flour flew everywhere. Some cheese fell on the floor, but instead of getting upset, we laughed, danced around the kitchen, and turned everything into a game. I realized that happiness isn't found in the final result, but in experiencing the moment, the laughter, the little messes, the shared joy. These moments of fun, mixed with deeper emotions, made me realize that Cheeseburger DC wasn't just someone who made me laugh. He was someone who made me feel loved, safe, and understood. I learned to cherish small details, silly jokes, but also to listen, observe, and appreciate the deeper things without needing them to be spoken out loud. Mornings, Afternoons, evenings with him never repeated in the same way. Sometimes we walked together, laughing at a stray cat. Sometimes he told me family stories I'd never heard before. Sometimes we watched an old movie together in comfortable silence, yet felt complete. Each small moment made me feel love in a unique, intimate, and surprisingly profound way. Gradually, I realized that these everyday moments, little secrets, playful antics, and quiet, emotional pauses were what made this relationship so special. Cheeseburger DC wasn't perfect, but he made me feel whole in a way no one else ever had. I learned that love doesn't require grand gestures or glamour. It needs sincerity, humor, and sometimes quiet moments full of emotion. And so, I accepted it all. The ridiculous nickname, the Taylor Swift secrets, the little playful jokes, and even the quiet, heartfelt moments. I understood that true love isn't always predictable or sparkling, but it shines in its own way through the most ordinary moments. Cheeseburger DC taught me that happiness can often be found in the tiniest details, and I knew that with him, every day could bring surprises, laughter, and deep, meaningful emotions. By the second month of our relationship, I started realizing that being with Cheeseburger DC wasn't just about laughter and playful moments anymore. It was starting to mix with little surprises, unexpected challenges, and situations that forced me to face my emotions in ways I hadn't before. I was learning that love isn't always easy, but it's precisely those small challenges that make a relationship feel alive and meaningful. One weekend morning, I got a text from him, "Get ready for a slightly unusual day today." I was curious, but I had no idea what he had planned. When I arrived at his place, I was greeted by him standing next to a neon green bike that looked like it had rolled straight out of a comedy movie. He grinned at me and said, "We're going to explore the city my way." I laughed, half shocked, half excited, and hopped on the bike with him. We pedaled through quiet alleyways and small streets I'd never noticed before. Every time he told a short story or pointed out some quirky street art, I felt like each moment was vibrant and memorable. Cheeseburger DC had this unique way of turning ordinary life into extraordinary experiences, but the surprises didn't stop with fun. We started facing small challenges that came from our daily habits. He's an early riser, and I'm a night owl. One morning, he pulled me out of bed at 6 a.m. for a walk in the park. I groaned and wanted to crawl back under the covers. Half annoyed, half amused. I realized that learning to adapt was part of love, being flexible enough to embrace each other's routines without judgment. Cooking together became another subtle test of patience and teamwork. I like following recipes step by step, while he prefers improvising and experimenting. One time, while making pizza, he tossed in a spice I had never tried before. I raised an eyebrow, but the flavor ended up being surprisingly delicious. He grinned, "See? Life needs unexpected spices." I laughed and realized that sometimes unpredictability isn't a problem, it's what makes life and love interesting. Social situations also brought their own little surprises. One evening, he invited me to meet a few of his close friends at a small cafe. I was nervous, unsure if I'd fit in. But as soon as we arrived, he started telling ridiculous stories, instantly breaking the ice. I laughed along, slowly relaxing, and realized part of love is learning to trust your partner and enjoy social situations together. He has this ability to make everyone around him feel comfortable, and because of him, I found myself feeling more confident in social interactions too. some surprises came from his secret hobbies. One evening, when I thought he was busy with work, I heard a familiar Taylor Swift melody drifting from the living room. He was humming along, but this time he invited me to join in. We sang together, laughed, and I realized that sometimes challenges aren't obstacles, they're opportunities to grow closer, to see trust and openness in action. The biggest challenges, however, often came from my own emotions. I started questioning whether I was relying on him too much. Did our shared humor, secrets, and playful moments mask deeper issues? Those thoughts sometimes made me anxious, but he always sensed it and never forced me to talk before I was ready. Instead, he stayed by my side through small gestures, a spontaneous hug, a warm smile, a light-hearted comment to ease the tension. I realized that love sometimes doesn't need words. It's in presence and the small ways we care for each other. Another afternoon, we went for a riverside picnic. While setting up the tent, he accidentally made a mess of everything, and I couldn't help laughing as I helped him. We sat side by side, watching the water flow, and I understood that little challenges, unexpected situations, even minor annoyances, were actually opportunities to get to know each other better. Love isn't always easy. It requires patience, flexibility, and, most importantly, the ability to find joy even in imperfect moments. These surprises also showed me a deeper side of him. He's not just funny and playful. He's thoughtful, always trying to make me feel safe and happy. He doesn't say much about his feelings, but through little actions, a cup of coffee, a sudden hug, a silly joke, I could feel the depth of his love. I learned how to love and accept him, and to enjoy the small, sometimes chaotic, moments along the way. Gradually, I realized that all these small surprises, minor challenges, and playful moments, mixed with quiet pauses, were the glue that held us together. Each imperfect situation became an opportunity to grow closer, to adapt, and to cherish even the simplest moments. I learned that love isn't always easy, but it's these small tests that give it vibrancy, color, and depth. And so, I embraced it all. The surprises, the minor annoyances, the silly little jokes, the quiet but meaningful moments. I understood that love doesn't need to be perfect. It needs sincerity, flexibility, and the ability to enjoy every moment, even the ordinary ones. Cheeseburger DC taught me that happiness often lies not in grand gestures, but in how you face surprises together, find joy in everyday life, and feel that warm closeness each and every day. By the third month of our relationship, I started realizing that love wasn't just laughter, playful moments, or small challenges anymore. There were subtle moments I hadn't anticipated, gentle conflicts that were enough to make me understand that both Cheeseburger, DC, and I were learning how to grow in this relationship. One Friday evening, we decided to try a new restaurant in the city. I was sitting there, enjoying my salad, when he suddenly got a call from a friend. I caught a few words: surprise, plan, and tired, but couldn't make out the details. He hung up, looking a little tense, and turned to me. "Sorry, today's a bit messy." I nodded, trying to act casual, but a small weight settled in my chest. I realized that Cheeseburger DC had pressures too, worries that I didn't always see. We continued our dinner, but the atmosphere wasn't as light-hearted as usual. I tried to spark conversation with jokes, but he only smiled faintly, not fully at ease. For the first time, I realized that relationships can't always be about fun. Sometimes, They require sensitivity, patience, and understanding. On the way home, I tried asking, "Was it a rough day?" He paused for a moment, then sighed. "Just some work stuff and personal responsibilities. But you know, sometimes you want everything to be perfect with the person you love, and it's not always possible." Hearing that, my chest tightened. I realized that love isn't just about my feelings. He was trying to balance himself and our relationship to Dot in the following week. Subtle conflicts started to arise over how we spent our personal time. I loved going to the movies on weekends, while he preferred walks, music, or hanging out with friends. At first, I felt a bit frustrated, thinking he didn't understand me, while he felt I was too rigid. We began discussing gently, but it got tense when both of us held firm to our preferences. At that moment, I learned an important lesson. Conflicts don't have to be big to matter. I took a deep breath, looked into his eyes, and said, "I get that you want your own time, but I also need mine. Can we try to compromise?" He smiled, and I realized that love sometimes means flexibility. Learning to adjust together without hurting each other another time. He accidentally forgot to remind me of an important event with my friends, and I felt disappointed. But instead of getting angry, I spoke honestly. "I know you're busy, but I also want to feel noticed." He listened and apologized, promising to be more mindful. A short conversation, but it taught me that love is understanding and adjusting, not endless arguing or resentment. The real emotional climax of this month came as a surprise. He decided to take me to the park where we had our first walk in the rain. This time, he prepared a small picnic under a large tree with my favorite foods, a few soft candles, and a carefully curated Taylor Swift playlist. I felt both touched and amused he still had his playful side. But now, with thoughtfulness and depth, we sat there, eating, listening to music, talking about real feelings, worries, pressures, and moments when neither of us was perfect. I realized that these moments where humor and sincerity intertwine helped us bond more deeply, understand each other, and learn to love with both heart and mind. Of course, not everything was perfect. During our conversation, he unexpectedly brought up a family-related story that made me feel slightly uneasy. But instead of arguing, I took a deep breath and said, "I know the past can be hard, but I want us to focus on the present and future." He smiled at me, a mix of affection and respect in his eyes, and I realized that sometimes love is accepting each other's past and present without causing pain. These subtle conflicts and emotional moments showed me both sides of love. It's playful, challenging, and gentle all at once. I learned that love isn't just laughter, it's patience, understanding, and the ability to adapt in unexpected situations. Cheeseburger, DC, wasn't just someone who made me laugh. He taught me to love deeply, respect each other, and face small challenges together, while keeping joy alive. Another moment that left a strong impression was when we went shopping for our outdoor picnic. I liked planning ahead. He liked spontaneous choices. When he picked a few quirky items, I felt slightly annoyed that things weren't following my plan. But he just smiled warmly at me. Sometimes, the unexpected makes the best memories. I laughed and realized that small challenges were opportunities to be flexible, enjoy moments together, and appreciate each other's differences. Finally, I understood that this subtle climax when emotions and challenges met was what made our relationship strong. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was enough for me to understand that love is a journey, playful, profound, challenging, and most importantly, an opportunity to grow together, and so I embraced it all. The surprises, the gentle conflicts, the quiet yet meaningful moments. I realized that true love doesn't need to be perfect or constantly fun. It needs sincerity, patience, and the ability to enjoy both laughter and challenges together. Cheeseburger DC taught me that every small challenge, every subtle surprise, is a chance to understand each other, love each other, and create memories I'll always cherish. The 4th month of our relationship hit like a strong gust of wind, unexpected, overwhelming, and full of challenges. I thought I had already grown used to his playful antics, spontaneous moments, and subtle conflicts. But Cheeseburger DC had a way of showing me that love always holds bigger surprises, challenges you can't always prepare for. It all started on a Saturday afternoon when he suggested we explore a historic district of the city we had never visited. I loved trips like this, but little did I know he had something special planned. As we walked past a tiny cafe, he pulled me inside, saying, "Trust me today. Everything will be okay." Curious yet nervous, I smiled and followed him. Inside, the warm lighting and soft music immediately put me at ease. He led me to a table where a small red box sat neatly. My heart skipped a beat. I had never seen him do anything like this before. He smiled, eyes sparkling, "Open it," hands slightly trembling. I lifted the lid and found a handwritten letter and a small, simple item that somehow made my heart ache. The letter was in his handwriting, slightly messy but heartfelt and clear. He wrote about the months we had shared, the small, joyful moments, the little surprises, and how I had endured his occasional fatigue and stress without complaint. He admitted that sometimes he wasn't sensitive enough to fully understand my feelings, but he was always trying, and he wanted me to know I was the most important person in his life. I couldn't hold back tears. I felt a mix of happiness, embarrassment, and pure emotion. Cheeseburger DC held my hand tightly and said, "You're the person who makes me want to be a better version of myself." I laughed through my tears, heart racing, realizing that the biggest surprise wasn't the gift or the romantic setup, but the sincerity, understanding, and genuine love coming from his heart. But the surprises didn't end there. While I was still emotional, he pulled out 2 tickets for a couple's cooking class he had secretly signed us up for. He laughed, "I want us to try something new together, and who knows, you might discover a hidden talent." I was simultaneously shocked and delighted. I loved surprises, but this time he elevated it. Not just fun, but an opportunity to experience, learn, and grow closer together that evening. On the way home, we laughed, talked, and shared our expectations, dreams, and worries that we hadn't expressed before. I realized that sometimes big surprises are the doorway to real conversations, moments where both of you reveal your true selves. The biggest emotional challenge came the next day. He accidentally dropped his phone in water, potentially losing all photos, messages, and memories of us. I saw the panic on his face and felt my own chest tighten. For the first time, I saw him vulnerable, not playful, not joking, just fragile and scared of losing part of our shared memories. I held his hand, looked him in the eyes, and said, "It doesn't matter if the phone or photos are gone. What matters is that we're here, together, and all the beautiful memories live in our hearts." He looked at me, grateful and emotional, and I realized that sometimes the biggest challenge isn't the loss itself, but how you face it together with the one you love. After that incident, We decided to recreate everything, take new photos, capture everyday moments, and build new memories rather than dwell on the past. I learned that love isn't just preserving memories. It's about creating new ones together, living fully in each moment. Another evening, sitting on the balcony, looking out at the city lights, he leaned over, placed his hand on my shoulder, and said, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing. I want you by my side." I felt the sincerity, the completeness in every word, in every glance. At that moment, all previous worries, surprises, and challenges melted away. I understood that love isn't just fun or playful antics, a genuine connection, a sense of safety, and being deeply loved. The emotional climax of this month concluded with a small project we decided to start together, keeping a shared journal of our experiences, feelings, and moments, both joyful and challenging. Each page became a testament to our love, understanding, and the hurdles we had overcome together. I realized that love isn't only about the present. It's a journey, a collection of memories, and the moments you choose to give your whole heart to each other in the end. I understood that big surprises and emotional challenges aren't always comfortable, but they add depth to love. Cheeseburger DC wasn't just a playful, funny partner. He was someone who taught me how to love deeply, grow alongside him, and cherish every moment together. I realized that love doesn't need to be perfect. It's the sincerity, the challenges, and the unexpected moments that make it truly special and unforgettable. By the 5th month of our relationship, I began to realize that love isn't just about joyful moments, playful surprises, or subtle conflicts. Love also lives in the moments when you have to face yourself, confront your past, and deal with fears you've never admitted. Cheeseburger DC was the same. He couldn't always voice everything he felt, but every action, every glance, showed me that he was quietly fighting to keep us together. One Friday evening, we decided to cook dinner at home. Usually, I loved these nights, the smell of food, laughter echoing in the kitchen, soft music in the background, and the casual sharing of our daily lives. But that evening, something felt different. Cheeseburger DC was quieter than usual, occasionally chopping vegetables or lifting pots, sneaking glances at me that seemed heavy with unspoken thoughts. I felt a little anxious, but I tried to act normal. Finally, I asked, "Is something on your mind? You seem distracted." He hesitated, then sighed. "It's just, sometimes I feel pressure from everything. Work, family, and even us. I don't want to disappoint you." My chest tightened. This was the first time he'd shared such a deep fear knot about a specific situation. But the fear of letting me down, a fear I'd never imagined he carried. We sat down for dinner, but I could still sense the weight in his heart. I took his hand and said, "You know, I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be you, and for us to try together." He looked at me with gratitude and emotion in his eyes. In that moment, I realized that love isn't always about perfection. Sometimes, it's about acceptance and walking together through vulnerability. The real challenge came a few days later, when a former flame unexpectedly messaged him. Instantly, feelings of jealousy and insecurity crept into me. I couldn't help but compare, even knowing he had chosen me. That night, we sat on the couch, soft light spilling through the windows, and I had to face my feelings. "I know you have a past, but I can't help feeling jealous." He held my hand and looked me straight in the eyes. "I understand, and I'm sorry if it makes you feel that way. But you have to trust me, my present and future are only with you. I took a deep breath and felt the sincerity in his words. I realized then that jealousy isn't about the other person. It's about learning to trust and communicate with each other. Another afternoon, we walked in the park. The sun filtered through the leaves, and he suddenly pulled me into a long hug. I know I can be hard to understand sometimes. I know I've hurt you, he whispered. But I want you to know I'll try every day not to lose you. I felt the raw sincerity, worry, and determination in him. For the first time, I truly saw that love isn't just joy or playfulness. It's the quiet, unseen commitments and efforts that matter the most. In the following days, we faced multiple personal challenges, together stressful work days, family pressures, and deep fears we'd never voiced. Each time, we found ways to communicate, to listen, and most importantly, to not let these struggles erase the joy and humor that glue us together. One small but profound exercise we tried was writing down what we feared losing most about each other: worries, unspoken wishes, and secret dreams. I wrote about the fear of losing him, the sense of security I felt when I was with him, and the moments I wanted to hold on to forever. He wrote about the fear of disappointing me, of his flaws pushing me away, and the worry of losing my trust. Reading our entries out loud, tears fell, but so did laughter, hand-holding, and a closeness I had never felt before. Through these experiences, I realized that love isn't just about happy moments. It's the courage to face yourself, to understand the other, and to accept even the most difficult parts of each other. Cheeseburger DC showed me that loving deeply isn't about comfort alone. It's about maturity, empathy, and the ability to love fully even when you feel vulnerable. One night, sitting on the balcony overlooking the twinkling city lights, he leaned over, placing his hand on my shoulder. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing: I want you by my side. I felt the complete sincerity in his words and his gaze. In that instant, all previous worries, surprises, and challenges melted away. I understood that love isn't just fun or playful. It's a genuine connection, a sense of safety, and being deeply cherished. By the end of the month, we started a small but meaningful project, keeping a shared journal of our experiences, emotions, and moments, both joyful and challenging. Each page became a testament to our love, understanding, and the hurdles we overcame together. I realized that love isn't only about the present, it's a journey, a collection of memories, and the moments you choose to give your whole heart to one another. This extended month also brought little surprises, affectionate notes, small gifts, and unexpected evenings. Cheeseburger DC arranged just to make me laugh and feel safe. I learned that mature love is a balance between surprises, sincerity, and facing your true emotions. By the end of this month, I understood that our relationship had grown immensely. We were no longer just two people laughing and playing. We were two people who knew how to face challenges together, how to listen, and how to love with heart, mind, and patience. I realized that this deep emotional turn was proof of love's true strength, where trials and surprises only make it stronger and more precious. And in a quiet moment, when I looked into his eyes, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Moments of insecurity, worries, and big surprises, all of it only made this love deeper, stronger, and more treasured. Cheeseburger DC wasn't just a playful, funny partner. He was someone who taught me how to love fully with both heart and soul. The 6th month began on a crisp morning, and I realized that our relationship had reached an emotional threshold I had never experienced before. Cheeseburger, DC, and I were no longer just two people joking around, teasing each other, or sharing small surprises. We were standing at the edge of real challenges where trust, feelings, and personal growth were on the line. One evening, he invited me to dinner at a fancy restaurant, with warm golden lights reflecting off crystal glasses. I loved evenings like this, but this time, it wasn't just romance. I felt it came with an unspoken pressure. His eyes sparkled, but there was a tension I hadn't noticed before. We sat across from each other, and after a few moments of silence, he took my hand. "There's something I need to tell you, and I hope you'll understand." My heart raced. He began to talk about the stress at work, family pressures, and worries he'd never shared with me. But what stunned me was when he admitted that he was facing one of the most important opportunities of his life, and one wrong choice could risk our future together. He looked at me, serious and trembling. "I have to choose between this opportunity and us. I don't want to lose you." My heart ached. For the first time, I saw him truly powerless, not playful, not joking, but a man standing at the most important crossroads of his life, afraid that love itself might slip away. I squeezed his hand. "I understand, and we'll decide together. I trust you, and we'll figure this out." He gave a small, nervous smile, but his eyes still carried worry. Over the next few days, we weighed every option and consequence. Every morning, I woke up to see him, thoughtful but still trying to smile so I wouldn't worry. I realized that loving someone isn't just sharing joy, it's sharing the burden, facing tough decisions, and learning to be responsible for the future together. One afternoon, while walking in the park, he stopped abruptly and pulled me into a long hug. "You know, I'm afraid that if I make the wrong choice, I'll hurt both of us. But I also know one thing. You are the most important person in my life." I felt the sincerity and worry in his voice. I understood then that the biggest challenge isn't the opportunity itself. It's trust and courage to choose love amidst a sea of other possibilities. One night, after many days of thinking, we tried a small but deeply meaningful exercise, writing down what we feared losing if the decision went wrong. Unspoken dreams and feelings we hadn't shared. I wrote about my fear of losing him, losing the security I felt with him, and the peaceful moments I wanted to hold forever. He wrote about his fear of disappointing me, losing my trust, and worrying that he wasn't enough to keep me. Reading our notes aloud, tears fell, but so did laughter, hand-holding, and a closeness I had never felt before. The true emotional climax came when Cheeseburger DC received news that his dream opportunity might be gone if he didn't decide immediately. That night, we sat on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. He placed his hand on my shoulder, voice trembling. "I don't know what to do, but I know one thing. You are the most important." I took a deep breath and realized that the choice itself wasn't the point. It was how we faced it together. We decided to sit down, discuss every step and every possibility, and most importantly, to commit that whatever happens, we would take responsibility together and never let love fade. I understood that mature love is a combination of courage, sincerity, and the ability to face challenges together, even when there's no clear answer. A week later, when he made his final decision, I saw relief on his face, though he looked exhausted. He looked at me, eyes shining. "I made my choice. And do you know what? You're the reason I did it." Our love is more important than any opportunity. I laughed and hugged him tightly, feeling in that moment the full power of love. It isn't always fun or surprising, it's about choice, sacrifice, and the courage to face life together. By the end of the month, I realized that our relationship had passed the biggest test yet. We were no longer just two people in love. We were partners who knew how to face difficulties together, share fears, and turn challenges into opportunities for deeper love. Cheeseburger DC wasn't just playful and funny. He was someone who taught me that true love is a daily choice, a matter of trust, and a journey of growing together. By the 7th month, I could feel just how much our relationship had transformed. Cheeseburger DC was no longer just playful, funny, or the guy I loved for his little surprises and jokes. He had become an essential part of my life, almost impossible to imagine being without. Every action, every glance, every smile carried care, loyalty, and a quiet commitment I had never experienced before. One morning, I woke up and looked around our shared space. We had created a little world full of memories, books left open on tables, warm coffee cups still steaming, little sticky notes with sweet messages. All these tiny details spoke volumes about the love we were building. I realized that true love isn't always about grand gestures or sweeping promises. It's found in the small, everyday acts people share with one another. That month, we also learned to confront old insecurities and face new challenges together. One afternoon, Cheeseburger DC called me out to the park where we had taken our first walk together. He pulled me into a long hug and said, "You know, I've learned a lot in this relationship. I used to think love was easy, but now I know it's a journey where we grow together." I could feel the sincerity in every word and gesture. That's when I truly understood that love isn't always about comfort or joy. Sometimes it's patience, courage, and a commitment that never stops. We spent time reflecting on the struggles we had gone through, moments of jealousy, insecurities, worries about the future, and the important decisions Cheeseburger DC had faced. Each reflection no longer brought pain or fear, but a sense of growth and strength that we had built together. I realized that those very challenges had laid a strong foundation for our relationship, making our love deeper and more resilient. A particularly meaningful moment that month was when we decided to write a letter to our future selves for the months ahead, for the challenges that might still come, and as a reminder to cherish one another. We wrote about our dreams, the things we wanted to hold on to, promises to each other, and gentle reminders to always appreciate the relationship we were building. Reading it together, a flood of emotions rose: gratitude, love, joy, and the deep understanding that we had found each other and were walking this path of love together. And yet, the month wasn't without its lighter moments, those playful jokes, the silly nicknames I gave him: Cheeseburger, Double Cheese, DC. Even with teasing, these little quirks made our relationship lively, relatable, and real. I realized that love isn't only seriousness or depth. It's laughter, patience, and finding joy together, even on the hard days. One evening, as the city lights twinkled outside, we sat on the balcony, sipping coffee, looking at the glowing skyline. Cheeseburger DC leaned over, resting his hand on my shoulder. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing: I want you by my side every day. No matter what happens." I felt the honesty in every word, every glance. At that moment, I understood that love is an ongoing journey, where trust, understanding, and commitment to face challenges together matter more than anything else. During this month, we also tackled practical challenges, work stress, family tension, and small moments that required patience, empathy, and forgiveness. Each time, I realized that mature love isn't always easy. It requires patience, sincerity, and the courage to love unconditionally. Cheeseburger DC showed me that love is learning to accept, to stand by each other, and to turn challenges into opportunities for deeper connection. The final highlight of our story came when we looked back on the entire journey, the first jokes, playful surprises, moments of jealousy, critical decisions, and the deep emotional understanding we had cultivated. I realized that true love isn't always perfect or flashy. It's a bond that's strong, a trust that doesn't waver, and the ability to walk together through everything life throws at you. And when I looked into his eyes, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together. Cheeseburger DC wasn't just playful, funny, and full of surprises. He was the person who taught me the real meaning of love, commitment, growth, and walking together through life. No matter what, to close this story, I want to leave one message. Love isn't always perfect, but if you find someone willing to walk with you through every challenge, someone who listens, understands, and loves you fully, that is real love, a love worth holding on to. A love worth dedicating yourself to for a lifetime.